Okay, this is about 11:30 GMT, just maybe 11:31 hours GMT, which is UK local time 12:31 hours on Friday, the 10th of September 2021. We're starting part A of the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. And as we have indicated, we're not going to discuss the contents of Fleet Street that have been published in the last 7 days or so. What we are going to do is to look at the role of the Fleet Street liars in the last 4 years. And when we say role, we mean the role in pursuing, in peddling, in spewing, by suppression and by denial, the corrupt, evil agenda of the intentionally law-breaking United Kingdom, so-called United Kingdom state bureaucracies. And we refer to the articles byline to Chris Cook in the Financial Times, dated 30 and 31st of August 2021, and the piece byline to the current president, a woman called Stephanie Boyce, 2 days later in the Financial Times. And what we say by referring to those two pieces is that it is not a secret. Criminal offenses are being committed by the UK state openly. And the open breaking of the law or laws and the criminality by the UK state is the proof that we are in the depth of darkness, dark age, and it is dark land instead of England. And the fact that Keir Starmer is politically dead does confirm that we are in the depth of darkness. And the evidence of the last 4 years, let's say in the rounds, last 4 years, it may be last 3 years, 11 months, or it may be 4 years, few months. The essential point is that it's a long time over which intentional, criminally conceived and criminally confected, serialized denials, obstructions have been inflicted on Geronimo, baby angel Geronimo. And of course, those have been directed at baby angel Geronimo's mom, Helen MacDonald. Now, as we have posted today earlier in the Facebook, Khoodeelaar campaign Facebook page, we believe that over the last 4 years, say in the rounds, constitutional law actions have been available as options to be applied, options to be made use of by the conscientious, conscious, concerned supporters of baby angel Geronimo and supporters of his mom, Helen. This is just reiterating the point that despite the fact that the ignorant and the evil peddlers operating by the Fleet Street papers have been in denial of the truth, and they have been too readily repeating the lies, untruths issued by the Boris Johnson-fronted cabal through DEFRA and its agencies and agents. There are three kind of significantly citable, quote, judicial decisions made by three, quote, judges, all three of which contain lies, intentional denial and obstruction, denial of an obstruction to the requirements of due process and rule of law, and the violations of the spirit and the pledge of the 1225 Magna Carta, which the published kind of decision in the Supreme Court case, Belhaj and another, that is his wife, versus Straw and others, Jack Straw and various people listed in the ruling. You can check the ruling. That the Magna Carta was cited in column 98 of the ruling. And what we say in interpreting that particular quoted text of the Magna Carta is that all the rights that are available to someone in Helen MacDonald's position under the various treaties, including the various declarations and conventions, upholding and safeguarding the human rights today, that is currently contemporary period, from 2017 to now, let's say. All those claims and grounds and rights have been expressly left out of the applications, the main key applications. And the applications as reported by Fleet Street, not as contained in the actual text, actual copy of each of the decisions, each of the three decisions. The attempt by Helen MacDonald on behalf of baby angel Geronimo to get DEFRA to tell the truth That fact that the applications were really, in substance, in essence, applications to get DEFRA to tell the truth, that has been intentionally left out by Fleet Street. And Fleet Street includes the Guardian on the one hand, or on the one kind of end, into the Sun and the Daily Mail on the other end. In between, Fleet Street has got 10 papers, I think. But we can check that. So this is the Sun, Star, Financial Times, The Times, Daily Mirror. So these are 5, Daily Mail 6, The Guardian 7, the I paper 8, the Daily Bribing Boris Graph, and the Daily Beaverbrook Liars. So these are 10. And we haven't got the Daily Star, the Morning Star, which too is re-edited by us, and we have edited it to the Daily Scar, because the Scar, this is the Scar as well, and this is the Scar that on the 9th, which is yesterday, published a very typical piece of evil. And so these are the titles that have been lying. And they've been lying for DEFRA, they're lying for the Boris Johnson fronted cabal. And the fact and the contents and the impact of the lying have been on the record, as far as on the records, in intentional violation of the kind of complete evidence and the truth of the matter. And the outlets, these 10, have committed crimes of their own, and they have actually committed defamation in addition to the defamation and the criminal untruths, falsification, fabrication perpetrated by DEFRA, via DEFRA, and from DEFRA and from number 10 Downing Street. And as the genuine supporters of the baby angel Geronimo have been pointing out, many of those supporters of the baby angel Geronimo have communicated their views and their disgust at the lies by the particular media outlets. So we say that the fact that those communications have taken place and the fact that they have contained what they have contained in support of the campaign for justice for baby angel Geronimo, a very good, very strong, very powerful case is made. For example, in the defamation case that McAlpine brought against Sally Barco, I mean, the actual alleged defamation was much muted much kind of disguised. Whereas the brazen acts of defamation against Helen MacDonald and against baby angel Geronimo have been not only brazen, but they have been riotously, negligently, criminally lacking in any respect for the baby angel Geronimo or Helen MacDonald. McAlpine, the ruling of the Queen's Bench Division, which ruled for McAlpine against Sully Barco, let's say. In effect, the details of the settlement, etc., are irrelevant. The main thing is that it was recorded. And McAlpine could not even produce 1% of the absolutely formidable evidence that Helen MacDonald can produce and baby angel Geronimo can produce. So, not only is there a very powerful case in defamation on that evidence that Helen MacDonald is entitled to make and argue and file, but the absolute innocence recognized from people watching from various parts of the world outside of the UK. Baby Geronimo, you could not come across a living embodiment of angelic innocence as represented by baby angel Geronimo. And he is the absolute ultimate declaration, continuous declaration of the truth against the liars of their friend, their peddlers in the media. Now, our program has been this particular kind of platform called KhoodeelaarTV television channel has been going on just for more than a year. And I call this world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. And that means that we examine the contents always in context, of course, of Fleet Street, and we say that this is world exclusive. This is not a lazy assertion, world exclusive. Because we are a non-profit campaigning organization and program and project, we have no careeristic curriculum vitae related purpose in making up a statement like world exclusive diagnosis. Our campaign runs and has run, and the movement that the campaign is part of has only ever run ethically motivated, ethically kind of contained and analyzed contents for the dissemination of the highest standard of truth and factuality. This is to help all campaigns for justice and campaigns against lies and lying, and all campaigns for accountability, transparency, democracy, equality, and fairness and all the other values that go together. What we have seen in the kind of pattern in the Fleet Street outlets about Baby Angel Geronimo so far is that they have carried pictures and they've carried some descriptions of the individuals that have been pictured along with or near Baby Geronimo, Baby Angel Geronimo and his mom Helen. And then they have these newspapers or news outlets have kind of repeated the lies of DEFRA. But none of the newspapers actually has published the key facts or the key timeline. So the news items, so-called, have ended up being confused and misleading and unhelpful packs of propaganda for a very lying, criminally engaged UK central government department and the office of the Prime Minister, currently held by Boris Johnson. Now, these people, as Stephanie Boyce pointed out, they have been obliged, they have been under a duty to observe the requirements of rule of law. Stephanie Boyce, of course, was not referring exactly to DEFRA or to Boris Johnson, but to the regime that Boris Johnson fronts. And the regime's serial attempts to do away with the rule of law, really. And Chris Cook actually said that the paid employees, also known as the civil service, are paranoid about a minister being embarrassed. Now, that was in the piece that Chris Cook wrote and published on the 30th and 31st of August 2021 about the fact that the UK central government department staff, employees, were openly destroying, burning, gutting the Freedom of Information Act. And he gave examples of the Freedom of Information Act requirements being defied. And he said that even if they are criticized, the government is criticized, as was the case in 2015 in a case before a tribunal where the tribunal judge, Mr. Justice Charles, or Mr. Charles, the justice or judge, tribunal judge. He said, Chris Cook, castigated the two civil servants who appeared for the government before him. One was named as Sir Alex Allen, and Chris Cook said about him that there was no standard, there was no ethics, there was no compliance with the legality. Because although this particular individual was condemned by the judge, he wasn't sacked and he wasn't disciplined. In fact, he stayed there generally in the Prime Minister's staff code advisor for another 5 years until he resigned in 2020. So what Chris Cook is saying is that the domestic act of parliament, or acts of parliament, let's use the kind of treatment of the Freedom of Information Act, which is being gutted by the civil service, as a kind of example that actually denotes similar things going on about other acts of parliament. So if you extrapolate the behavior of the UK central government staff in openly breaking the Freedom of Information Act, then you can see that the government is breaking not one law, but many laws. And a dedicated series of action, campaigning legal action, campaigning constitutional law actions would contain actual facts of the government's behavior about other laws as well, including the fact in common law, various common law duties as well, duties under Magna Carta, of course, duties under which the UK state remains actively obliged, the duties that arise from the UK's position as a currently active signatory to the various conventions, treaties, declarations, charters, all of the ones international, and none of them has been altered by the UK's so-called decision to exit the European Union, because absolutely the overwhelming majority of those treaties, acts, declarations, and charters and agreements are outside of the European Union as such. And many of them predate many of the recent agreements that the UK signed while it was still a member of the European Union, the EU. So when Chris Cook writes that civil servants don't like that, they're paranoid about ministers being embarrassed, what he means is that they will be doing anything in their minds to prevent a likely embarrassment of a minister or ministers. So that was the article that Chris Cook wrote on the 31st of August 2021 in the Financial Times. The question is, does any campaigner or does any investigator have a log, a kind of itemized list of illegality, breaches of the law, flouting of the law, criminality done by either DEFRA or any of its local agents or agencies? And does anyone have a itemized log of the reaction by Boris Johnson and his cabal at number 10 Downing Street and of DEFRA to each of Helen MacDonald's public statements, each of any other supporter of baby angel Geronimo, making a comprehensive, clear, and serious point about the illegality being done by DEFRA against Geronimo. These can be organized because the person who knows who have been the most sympathetic communicants have, of course, contacted her and shared most of what they have said and what they have thought in support of the baby angel Geronimo. Now, the United Kingdom, as I've said before, is a state in the 1940s which took part in the Nuremberg trial after the end of the so-called Second World War. And one of the things that has been kind of continued as a reference point after the end of the Nuremberg trial is the concept of following orders. That means that following fascist orders without any regard for the impact on justice, denying justice. So those who say that they have been following orders in attacking Helen and in targeting baby angel Geronimo have been following orders. They need to be treated on the facts of their behavior exactly as the servants and the couriers and agents of the Nazi regime were doing. And we have said before that when Nazi Germany's leader, Adolf Hitler, noticed that some of the decisions in the courts were not repeating the orders and the narrative and the agenda of the Nazi regime, the Reich, Hitler changed the law and made the judiciary and the judges mere continuations, rubber stamps of the Nazi agenda and the Nazi rule. So to what extent can the decisions, the words of Murray, Griffiths, and Stacey, to what extent can the words and the decisions and the so-called rationale cited by these three judges in their ruling against baby angel Geronimo, to what extent are these judges demonstrable as doing the kind of way, the behaving the kind of way that the judges in Hitler's Nazi Germany behaved? These are the concrete, precise, exact issues and explanations that must be put on the table actively in the campaign for justice for baby angel Geronimo. When we go to the media, so-called, and look at their role, there is at least a pretense of complaint against the media. For example, one is for broadcasting outlets. One is Ofcom. And the other for print outlets. That was set up after the Levison inquiry. And there are apparently two outlets. One is the one that the Daily Mail and others actually support, and the other is one set up by people who include Hugh Grant and the recently deceased Max Mosley and the former Labour Party MP from West Midlands in England constituency called Tom Watson. The point is that every perpetration of lies and defamation and inaccuracy by the Flea Street outlets and the media must be rigorously exposed, identified, and the perpetrator concerned or perpetrators concerned be held to account for the criminal, cruel, untruthful attack on the integrity and the integrity of the health and integrity of the history of baby angel Geronimo. Then there are various platforms, including the so-called professions. Any lawyer or licensed law trader who has appeared in any capacity and at any date and knowingly neglected to check the facts before repeating the lies and defamations against Helen MacDonald and against the baby angel Geronimo can be the subject of a serious fact-based complaint to their licensing body. For so-called barristers, there are 4: Lincoln's Inn, Gray's Inn, Middle Temple, and Inner Temple. And there is, on top of that, the Bar Council. And the Bar Council can be asked to investigate. And the investigation is kind of provided for or allowed for under the various codes of conduct that the licensed law traders are supposedly obliged to practice when they practice as licensed law traders. And there are other bodies and other kind of outlets that can be invoked for the record and as part of the campaigning demand for justice for baby angel Geronimo. There is Ofcom, and there is the independent press body, so-called, or bodies. There are 2. And there is the other one, which is the trade union for a lot of journalists, called the National Union of Journalists. The NUJ too has a code of conduct. And the NUJ can be approached with a formal complaint against their members in the particular papers or in the media and the NUJ can be asked to investigate the complaint or complaints. And there are international forums, including the United Nations agencies. For example, since the last latest announcement made by the US president and the others occupying Afghanistan, that the American troops in the main from the US occupied Afghanistan were going to be pulled out. So from that time onwards, the United Nations has been posting on the social media accounts various commitments to what is essentially justice, human rights, and protection of the safeguarding and protection of animals. So that United Nations forum, there is not just one, there are several, can be asked to investigate or to comment about the breaches of the particular agreements and charters that the United Nations agencies exist to implement and supervise and monitor. So the justice for baby angel Geronimo goes to all these forums, international, national, professional, and so on. Then there is the House of Commons. I mean, it is not a guarantee that Lindsay Hoyle, the current Speaker of the House of Commons, will agree that Boris Johnson has lied against baby angel Geronimo and against Helen MacDonald, and that Boris Johnson has actually broken various codes of conduct. Lindsay Hoyle is a puppet speaker. But the point is not about his puppetry or puppeteer role. The point is to put on the record a clear complaint against Johnson and any other MP for the purpose of Geronimo compiling the book of justice for baby angel Geronimo. All these people were given the opportunity to do justice, and they didn't do justice. That is the point. And to extend the campaigning mode, many notorious, well-known, depending on who is describing, individuals like the person or persons who claim credit for organizing the demonstration against Donald Trump's visit to the UK. Those people, as far as we can see so far, have been silent about the call for justice for the baby angel Geronimo. And so we compile a list of these people and say that they are on the list because they were asked to support the campaign for justice for baby angel Geronimo, and they didn't. So that's the point. We shall be, of course, continuing, and this will be this particular edition, part A, will be brought to an end because of the length. and we shall come back later in the afternoon with part B. So this is just under an hour, I think. So we shall conclude this.